What they really didn't get is this, and this is what they wanted. They wanted a shutdown. We know that. They were desperate to make this administration look like we couldn't function, like we couldn't govern. And we know that a large part of their base, especially their left-wing base, wanted a shutdown and certainly didn't want them to cut a deal with us. That's why I think you're seeing them crowing about their success, is in order to cover up the fact that they actually cut a deal with President Trump, and President Trump did a tremendous job.
The president, as you know, tweeted out this morning that looking ahead to fiscal year 18, a shutdown may be just the thing that's needed to clean up this budget mess. Do you agree with him on that? Can you expand on that?
You know, I've been through a couple of shutdowns. Let me answer that question this way. That's a good discussion to have in September. I think the president is frustrated with the fact that he negotiated in good faith with the Democrats and they went out to try and spike the football and make him look bad. And I get that frustration because I think it's a terrible posture for the Democrats to take. If we're sitting here trying to prove to people that Washington is going to be different, that we're going to change things, we can actually figure out a way to work with them, and they do that to this president, listen, I would have taken offense at that. So it doesn't surprise me at all that his frustrations were manifested in that way. We've got a lot to do between now and September. I don't anticipate a shutdown in September, but if negotiations, if the Democrats aren't going to behave any better than they have in the last couple of days, it may be inevitable. You want to follow up on that?
How would a shutdown clean up the mess?
Look, there's a lot. Sooner or later, we'll have to start doing something different. All right. I think I can make the argument, and I think I just did, that we've made something dramatically different here today by getting rid of parity, by going that dollar to dollar and getting to something new. Okay. That may help us change town a little bit. But if we get to September and it's still business as usual, business as usual, business as usual, nothing changes, and it takes a shutdown to change it, I have no problem with that. The gentleman in the back in the white and the red tie.
The president wants the government to shut down. He could just veto the new spending bill. He doesn't have to wait until the fall. So why doesn't he just do that if he thinks a government shutdown is the best?
Yeah, I think we're giving it a chance to work. I think we're actually trying to, first of all, show that we can govern, and we can. We can do it effectively, and we have. And we can also fund our priorities, which this does. So I think, why would you shut it down when you've cut a fairly good deal for the American people and funded your priorities? I think what you heard this morning was his sense of frustration over how he's being mistreated by the Democrats on a bipartisan piece of legislation in the back standing up. Yes, sir.
So, the president today in the tweet talked about a potential shutdown. You say Democrats wanted to do what they did so that they could force a shutdown. We've heard the term shutdown a lot here.
Yeah.
I think there's probably some folks at home who are saying, my gosh, we're barely 100 days into this. What does that mean for tax reform? What does that mean for an infrastructure bill? What does that mean for a government spending bill in September? And this is just year one. What does it say to the tone that we're already talking about?
I think the tone is that they have a president who can run the place, which is not a narrative that you hear coming out of many different sources right now. You have a president who is able to work with Democrats and Republicans. Again, a little disappointed at the way the Democrats have acted after the deal was put together. But you've got a president who knows what he's doing when it comes to running the country. There were a lot of people who were absolutely convinced, including when he hired me to be the OMB director, that we were going to have a government shutdown. And I think the message that we're sending is that we are competent, we know what we're doing, and the country is safe in our hands, and we think this goes to prove that. Yes, sir.
What just occurred, you said the negotiations that just...
Mr. Chair, I want to follow up on that, on Don's question. I'm a little confused. You said that the Democrats wanted a shutdown.
Yeah, I really believe
and
that.
And it's the president himself that tweeted, our country needs a good shutdown in September. Can you explain that? And if there is a shutdown in September, won't it clearly be the president's fault? I mean, he's the one actually calling for it.
Again, the 18 budget comes up in September. Between now and then, you've got tax reform to deal with. You hope to have infrastructure to deal with. You have the debt ceiling to deal with. So there's a lot of things to deal with between now and September. And again, what I think you heard the president expressed this morning was frustration over how he's been treated as part of the negotiation. And it may be, if things don't get better, that we get to that point. But I think there's a lot of things that will happen between now and then to let us know if we're moving in the right direction. To your first point about the Democrats, I think it was a little bit reported that there was a great deal of disagreement within the House Democrats over this deal. That Mrs. Pelosi was absolutely convinced when we said that we wanted money for the wall that we would shut the government down. And when we took that request off of the table early in these negotiations, they were flabbergasted. And they were stuck in a circumstance where they were facing possibly shutting the government down, and some of them wanted to do that. My guess is their base is not going to be very happy to know that we are building this. Okay? We are taking their taxpayer money to build this. right? That's the deal that we cut, and my guess is that's not going to sell very well with some folks on the left, but they're going to have to deal with that.
Quick follow-up on this notion of a good shutdown. Wouldn't most Americans agree that shutdowns are bad? You shouldn't shut down the government? And further to that point, it seems as if you may have answered your own question this week on the question of government shutdown. You have a compromise. Republicans and Democrats are getting together and passing something. Both sides are not getting everything that they want. Isn't that what the American people want? They want their government to work and pass budgets that can be a compromise and both sides can agree on. How can a shutdown be good?
That's exactly what I think they want, and that's exactly what we have given to them with this agreement. My point to you in response to a couple different questions was that the president wants to see Washington better, get fixed, change the way it does business.
This week that you had a compromise?
It is. It absolutely is, which is why it's so frustrating. Which is why it's so frustrating to have the Democrats go out and say they won and we lost. That's not a bipartisan way to approach things. I can't imagine Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill having that discussion, at the end of a negotiation.
Both sides always do.
You actually, last question.